Hi everyone, and welcome to Squirrel Pie Productions. My name is Tommi. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as DynamiteTrujillo. Welcome to episode 98 of my podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. It is a really beautiful and overcast Friday in May here on the Northern California coast where I'm coming to you from. There are show notes in the description box below if you're interested in checking out links to anything I talk about today. Thank you so much for being here. If you're a new viewer, welcome, and if you are a returning viewer, a big welcome back. I have quite a bit of stuff to talk about today. I have been knitting and crocheting and sewing and dyeing yarn. It's so much fun. So we're gonna get right into it with my first finished object, which is a big, giant crocheted shawl. This is the Just Feel Festive shawl, which is a crocheted shawl pattern by Kalisha Ryan, who is also the host of the Quirky Monday Craftcast. It's a free pattern, and it's wonderful. I love it so much. So I'm just gonna give you the whole tour. It's really long. I made it as long as I wanted to, and I made it very long. I think longer than the schematic calls for in the pattern. It's a really simple formula. You are crocheting back and forth on the bias where you increase on one side and decrease on the other side the whole way up. And I used scraps, so the pattern calls for a DK gauge by holding two fingering weight yarns together. And that's what I did. I used a bunch of scraps and I held two different colorways together at the same time, and I marled them. So I would drop like color A, I would hold color A and B together, not like I gave my colors names or anything, but eventually I would drop color A and pick up color C, and then eventually I would drop color B and pick up color D. I think what I said what I just said makes sense. I don't know, who knows? But that's what I did. I marled it and I'm very happy with it. There is a lot of different yarn in here. And I'm not going to go through what it all is because there's so much different yarn in here, including a bunch of stuff that I'm not quite sure what it is because, like I said, it was just from my scrap bin. But I've got a lot of grays and purples, especially down on this end, and browns down here towards the end. And then I've got this really bright rainbow section right here, which I really like. And it starts out with some like muted greens and grays and pinks and stuff too. I'm super into it. This was so much fun to make, and oh, I just love it. So it's like a long rectangular style shawl, and it's really great. It's really super drapey and really nice to wear. I like the weight of the fabric, and I've been digging it. I like it a lot. So that is my first FO. I love it. It's wonderful. It's actually my only FO. Something I am pretty into that I did is I did one stripe with some mohair in it. So it's all fingering weight, like sock yarn and stuff. But I did one little bit that has one strand of mohair, and that's kind of my favorite part. Okay. So Just Feel Festive shawl. There's also a Just Feel Better shawl, which is the same concept, only a different shape. It's also a free pattern by Kalisha. So check that out if you're interested. I used the hook size called for in the pattern, but I don't remember what that was. But I did use a tulip hook because they're wait, no I didn't. I used a boy hook, one of those old aluminum ones. I'm a liar. On to whips. My first work in progress. I'm going to show you the big thing first. I have two works in progress this week. I have a big thing and a little thing. And I'm going to show you the big thing first. So I am working again on my weekender, which is living in my Ghastly's project bag that I made a long time ago. Back when I sewed project bags sometimes. Oh man, I dropped my yarn. Okay, we're good. Everything's fine. So I'm almost done. I actually thought I might be done by this episode, but I'm totally not. So this is my weekender. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. It's a bottom-up pullover And I'm using 2 fingering weight yarns held together, and I'm using 4 different skeins of yarn and marling them. So I've got the body totally done, and I'm super into it. That's what it is so far. It's got this split hem, which was really cool, and it's in reverse stockinette, and it's got this, that's not it, it's got this slip stitch detail up both the front and the back, and it's got a boat neck, which I really like. I've tried it on and it fits me great. I'm making the smallest size, and here is my first sleeve that is totally done. Those are all my markers where I did my decreases. And I lengthened the sleeves. I didn't lengthen the body, which is something I kind of typically do to sweaters, but I knit the body according to pattern. I did lengthen the sleeve probably by 4 or 5 inches. I think the sleeves are meant to be like to here, but I wanted them like to here. So I am working on the second sleeve now, and it's great. I'm knitting the sleeve on a US 9, which is what the pattern calls for, and then I'll go down a needle size for the cuff. The yarns that I'm using are all of this stuff. There's my swatch. So, okay, this is Woolberry Fiber Co. in the Berry Merino base, I think. Let me find the tag. Let me tell you the right thing. Berry Merino, 100% superwash merino in the colorway Reflection. And then I'm using Beehive yarns in the Bardot base. And this is the Desert Trail colorway. And here we have Sweet Sparrow yarns in the Magpie base in the Wrapped Up in Books colorway. And this is Toil and Trouble in the Classic base and the Stars Open Among the Lilies colorway. So these were my 4 skeins. This is pretty much what I have left. What I did is when I finished the body, I took each cake that I had left, split it in half, and then each half was for each sleeve. And I think from the first sleeve, this is all I had left, were these 3 little balls. So now I've got these left for the second sleeve, and I think I'm going to be using almost all of my yarn, which I think is really, really lucky for something like this, because I kind of just guessed at what I was going to need. I figured 4 skeins would be enough for what I wanted to do. And yeah, it worked out really great. It fits pretty good so far. So pretty much each of these color block sections are 2 different yarns held together. I just switched them up the whole time. And yeah, and then I'm pretty much replicating what I did on the sleeves, but going down instead of up. So it fits really nicely. It's got a nice amount of positive ease. There's no shaping, and it hits me a little higher than I would want it to hit if I was choosing for myself where I wanted it to hit. Because it's bottom up, it was kind of hard to tell, so I just kind of went with what the pattern said. But I'm pretty positive it's going to grow in length once I block it, because it's superwash wool and it's pretty heavy. So I'm pretty sure it's going to grow in length, which I'm happy about. But I like it. I like it a whole lot. I'm so happy I made this. I've been wanting to make one of these sweaters for a pretty long time. Look at that sleeve. So I'm having a really good time with that, and I'm almost done, and I can't wait to wear it. Now that I'm sitting over here, I don't have anywhere to throw things to, so my next work in progress is a new cast on, and it's living in this other project bag that I made myself a very long time ago, and it is a pair of socks, and they look like this. Oh, I'm in the middle of a row. Wow. Just gonna have to fix that, because that's dumb. Okay, did it. What is this? What happened? What did I do? Oh my God. All right, anyway. Here they are. So this is a pair of top-down vanilla socks with a heel flap and gusset. I'm knitting these on a size US 0 needle. This is my Xiaogu Mini Twist Interchangeable. And I cast on 64 stitches for the cuff. It's a 2x2 rib. And then I went down to stockinette. And do you want to know what yarn this is? It's Moonstone Dyeworks, which is my yarn. I dyed self-striping yarn. It's very exciting. I am very excited. So, here it is in the ball. This is my merino sock base. It's an 80-20 merino nylon, superwash merino nylon blend. And I am so stoked about this. So this is my very first self-striping yarn that I have ever dyed. And it's called Old Fashioned Love. Old Fashioned Love is the colorway. It's named after a John Fahey album, who is a folk solo guitarist that I really like. And this is it. This is my sock. I dyed the yarn and I cast it on right away. Self-striping yarn takes me right now, the way I'm doing it, like several days to complete the dye process and then into like usable form. So as soon as that whole process was over, I cast on immediately for my sock because I was so excited about it. Yay! I'm just gonna keep showing you because I'm very proud. I don't do contrasting yarn for a heel. I'm not terribly into color management when it comes to self-striping socks. I'm not into it at all, actually. I kind of like the self-striping in the heel and the cuff thing. So, and plus I don't have any extra ends to weave in when I'm done. So, Moonstone Dyeworks, which is my yarn, my hand-dyed yarn, is not typically a self-striping kind of yarn thing, but a couple weekends ago, or a few weekends ago, I don't remember, Joanna Spring of Knit Spin Farm did a virtual fiber festival where she put out a bunch of YouTube videos doing fun stuff around her farm. She had a big shop update. She's a self-striping yarn dyer. And one of the tutorials that she put out, one of the YouTube videos that she put out was a self-striping yarn dyeing tutorial. And it was really great. And I've never really had any interest in dyeing self-striping yarn before. But I watched that video and she just made it seem like so like easy and like, you know, if you have the stuff, you can do it. Just go do it. Why not? Just go do it. And I was like, okay. So I got together my stuff and I don't have any specialized equipment for self-striping yarn. So it was a lot of, I mean, I pretty much just did what she said because her tutorial is based on somebody who doesn't have like, I don't know, warping boards or mills or whatever you use for self-striping yarn. So it was a lot of walking, which was great. I wear a Fitbit, so I think winding up my cakes initially into the giant hank that you need to use gave me double the steps that I would normally have in a day. I think it was 10,000 steps winding the yarn for this initially. But, and then you have to do the same thing in reverse when you ball it up. But it was so fun. I had such a good time dyeing this yarn. And I got really kind of into it because kind of when I first get into something, I get a little bit obsessed. So I immediately went on to my yarn dealer's website and ordered some more yarn to do some more self-striping. So yeah, I'm kind of getting into shop news here, but I am going to be dyeing self-striping yarn for the shop. I don't know for how long, but at least until I'm like, until my excitement about it wanes, which could be really quick because it's really a lot. It's a big time commitment doing self-striping yarn, so I don't know how long it's going to last. But anyway, this exists, and I'm really stoked about it. And if you're interested, it will be in the shop, but I will talk about that, I guess, when I'm done talking about the socks. Yeah, let's talk about it now, or whatever. I also have sewing coming up, so I'll talk about that after. the shop update segment. So I guess that's all I have to say about the socks themselves. I like them a lot, and I can't wait to wear them. This is the first one. So, Moonstone Dyeworks, that's all I've been working on. Those are my projects, and they are wonderful, and I love them. Okay, Moonstone Dyeworks shop update. I have a website, moonstonedyeworks.com. It is linked in the description box below, and I will have a shop update tomorrow, which is Saturday, May 9th, at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'll also put a time converter in the description box below if you want to see what time that is in your local time. That's pretty clever, right? So, okay. I had only initially planned to do just one batch of self-striping yarn just because I wanted to try it. It just sounded fun, so I just wanted to try it once and see what I thought. But I figured I shouldn't do just one skein. If I have the capacity to do, you know, however many skeins, I'm going to do that max amount of skeins I can do in that one batch. So all the rest of the yarn that I dyed in that batch is going up in the shop in that update tomorrow. And I also dyed a second self-striping colorway. And I have some other stuff, so I'm going to show you all that now. Okay, so here is an untouched ball of Old Fashioned Love. It has got a dusty pink color stripe, a sage stripe, and a gold stripe. It's 3-striping yarn. And I'm only going to have this one available on BFL sock. So this will be available. And then my other self-striping colorway that I dyed brand new is this one. So this is a 2-striper, and this is called Dark Side of the Rainbow. You get that? Have you ever done Dark Side of the Rainbow? It's where you play Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon at the same time as watching The Wizard of Oz on mute. It's amazing. If you're bored, you need something to watch while you have your evening cocktail, I highly recommend doing that. It's amazing. I haven't done it in a long time, but I've done it quite a few times in my life because I used to think it was really cool, like, you know, when I was a teenager and stuff. But anyway, this is Dark Side of the Rainbow. I thought it would be pretty fitting. So like I said, this is a 2-striper, and I have knit up a small sample of this just because I wanted to see what it looked like before I put it up in the shop. So I just did a little swatch. And that's what this one looks like knit up. So I love it. The pink stripe is a very close cousin to Moon Age Daydream. I definitely, absolutely used Moon Age Daydream as like an inspiration for that color stripe. I kind of knew I pretty much wanted Moon Age Daydream to be one stripe and then like a dark gray to be the next stripe. But I tweaked it a little bit because I wanted to. So we've got like a grayish, bluish stripe and an almost Moon Age Daydream stripe. And there it is. So this will also be up in the shop. This one is on a new base for me. So I tried a couple different ways of ordering bare yarn to do self-striping. What I did with my first batch is I took a bunch of regular skeins, wound them into cakes, and then wound them into giant skeins that you need to do to dye self-striping yarn. And for the stuff that the new yarn that I bought for it, I ordered some cones, and I also ordered some like long hanks that are already just wound into long hanks. And those were only available on this base, which is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon. So it's a really typical merino sock base, but instead of the one that I use, which is the kind of plumper 2-ply sock yarn, it's the thinner, smoother, like 4-ply sock yarn. And I really love the way this knits up too. I don't know if I'll continue carrying this base or not, but we'll see. But that's what this is available on. And since I'm selling it, I gotta name it, so I can't call it merino socks. I already have merino socks, so I'm calling it merino 4-ply. That's what this will be under, is merino 4-ply. And those are both like 100-gram, like full-size balls. And then I will also have some bad ideas. And I have dyed a new colorway, which if you saw on Instagram, I hadn't named it yet. It took me a really long time to think of a name for this one, but I finally thought of a name. This is Cassiopeia, which is a constellation. So this is a brand new colorway. It will be available in the shop on a few different bases. And that's it. That's everything that's going to be in the shop. There is already some stuff in the shop available now that will be there tomorrow too. So we've got my 2 self-strapping yarns, which I am so proud of and in love with, and I hope you like them because I am in love with them. And these 2. So thank you for listening to my shop spiel. If you are interested, I will see you there tomorrow. And my self-strapping yarn isn't gonna be, like, there isn't that much of it because, you know, I was just kind of playing around. But if it, I don't know if it's gonna sell out. If it sells out and you want some and you didn't get any, I do plan to continue doing it for now. So there will be more, and I will let you know when there is more, probably here on the podcast and on Instagram. And I'll try to let you know in advance so that you can be ready if you want it. And like I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be doing it. I'm pretty sure this is going to be temporary unless I really just go nuts and decide I'm really in love with it and buy equipment. I have no idea. I have no idea. But for now, this is what I'm doing. Okay, so that is my shop segment. Thank you. And we are now moving on to sewing. I think my sewing mojo's back. It's pretty great. It feels really good. And I have sewn 2 pieces of clothing in like the past week. So I'm going to show you the first thing because the first thing is something I'm wearing. So I made the Gypsum skirt by Sew Liberated, and this is it. It's a skirt. It's got an elastic waistband all the way around. And the version that I made has these gigantic, like, floppy pockets, and it's pretty much knee length. I shortened it. The pattern calls for it to be like past your knee, but I took off a lot of length. For one, because I'm short, and for 2, because I wanted it knee length. I'm learning about myself that I am more and more into shorter skirts rather than longer skirts like I used to be. I used to be into the kind of mid-calf length skirt, like wearing with high heels, but now I'm more into like the knee length skirt with like boots. I think that's more my thing right now. So anyway, this is it. I love it. It is made out of a linen cotton blend, and I got it from fabric.com, and I was able to find like my order history, so I'm going to link it below in case you're interested in this fabric. And let's see. There we go. So this is what it looks like. I love it so much. I really like the drape of this fabric. I feel like it works really well for this skirt. It's nice and like, it's a little weighty. It's not super light. It's like a medium weight, I think. But the drape is really, really nice especially for a cotton linen blend. And the pockets are really great. And I love it. I'm wearing it over an Agnes top that I made into a dress. And I kind of like it under skirts like this. I'll show you. So I lengthened it into a dress, so it comes all the way down to here. But it kind of works nicely as like a top / slip for underskirts, so I really like that. And okay, I'm gonna sit down. I did make some mistakes that I will point out to you while I'm standing up. You will see this kind of thing in a few different places on this skirt. Pretty much all up and down the front hems. This one's really nice right here. So I'll tell you about those in a minute. Okay, so I had a really great time making this skirt. Something I know about myself is that I do a little better when I kind of piece out the sewing process. Like with this skirt, I printed out the pattern, I taped it together, And then like a different day, I cut out the fabric. And then like 2 weeks later, I sewed the thing together. And I don't like that it took me that long, but it worked way better for me to have those pieces of the sewing process done individually, because then they weren't all lumped together into one long marathon session where by the end I'm like exhausted and like angry. So I had a really great time sewing it. It was really pretty simple, but I did get to, I think, new techniques from it, or at least 2 interesting techniques. And they were techniques for doing enclosed seams, which is really useful to me because I don't typically do anything great with my seam finishing, or with my, is that what it's called, seam finishing? What's the thing on the other side of the seam, on the back? Seam allowance finishing? You know what I mean. Usually I just finish my seams with pinking shears, and that doesn't always work. The last thing that I made before this skirt was the Brumby skirt, and I made that out of some, I think it was like challis fabric, like rayon challis maybe. And I did that, and then I washed it, and all of the seams frayed down, or all of the oh my goodness, words. All of the seam allowances frayed completely down to the seam. And so I had a bunch of holes all along all my seams. And after that experience, I was like, okay, this isn't a good idea anymore. Pinking shears just don't, I mean, I know all fabrics are different, but it made me realize I need to start taking better care of my seam finishing, which isn't something I ever wanted to have to deal with before. And this skirt had me do French seams and flat felled seams, which were both really great. And I'm super into the idea of using both of those techniques in other sewing patterns from here on out to finish my seams. So that was awesome. Yeah, it came together really easily. I got this I think it's 2-inch elastic for the waistband from my local yarn shop. They're doing curbside pickup, so I called them and ordered it, and you know, they ran it out to my car for me. And I didn't think I was gonna like an elastic waistband on a skirt, but I like how wide this is. I think my thing with elastic waistbands that I maybe don't like is when they're really thin and they kind of like can like poke into you, you know, maybe in unfortunate stomach roll spots when you're sitting, you know, the weird thing that it can do sometimes. But with a really wide elastic waistband, I think, I don't know, it feels really nice. I really like it a lot more than I thought I would. I'm pretty sure I want to make another one of these skirts. I think this might be my most successful skirt to date. But my mistakes. So those weird zigzag stitches you saw on my seams were on the flat felt seams. So this skirt has you do flat felt seams. So you do French seams for the pockets. So that's the pocket. There's French seams in there, believe me. So these seams right here, there's 2 in the front and 2 in the back. You do flat felt seams. Now, that's what it looks like. And it has you, it tells you specifically, like, so with flat felt seams, I don't know how to talk about sewing, I'm a little all over the place, but with flat felt seams, you take your seam allowances on the opposite side of whatever, you take your seam allowance and you take one and you trim it down really short to like 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch or something like that. And you take your other seam allowance and you leave it with all of its length and you fold it over your cut down seam allowance, and then you fold it over again and you sew on top of it. So it encloses all of your raw edges. And the pattern tells you trim this side, not this side, because it has to do with the pockets and where their bulk lies. And I was like, okay, I read that instruction. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that, because it made so much like hullabaloo about telling me, like, make sure you do the right seam. I did the wrong seam. Just on one of them. On 3 of them, I trimmed the right seam allowance, but on one of them, I trimmed the wrong one because I'm dumb. I had no good reason for doing it. I just did it, and then I was like, man. So instead of just doing it the other way, which would have exposed some pocket things, I was like, it's fine. I'll just trim the other one even shorter. And so that was stupid. So instead of having like all kinds of great like fabric length to fold over and sew down, I had a teeny tiny bit of fabric to fold over another teeny tiny bit of fabric and sew down. And so obviously that didn't work out that great. I didn't catch all of my raw edges. And so after I washed the skirt, a bunch of them poked out. So I just went over and I zigzag stitched over them like a whole bunch, and it was fine. Well, actually, I did that before I washed it. So then after it came out of the wash, they were fine. But after it came out of the wash, one of my other perfectly done flat filled seams also frayed. I just didn't notice that I didn't catch the raw edges, so I had to do it again on the other side. So that's why this skirt has a bunch of like zigzag stitches just like up and down those seams. But it's okay. It's fine. It's visible mending. It's cool. It's hip. But also another thing about the flat felled seams is I've developed an opinion, and I don't know anything about them. This is the first time I've ever done them or seen instructions for them before. But this skirt calls for you to do the flat felled seams to where you fold over and enclose your raw edge on the outside, on the right side of the garment, which gives you, I mean, I'm sure other people do it way better than me, but it gives you this like, you know, little hoop-de-hoo here. Whereas on the wrong side, the inside of the skirt, it gives you nothing. You just have a seam, and then you have the back of the fold, right? Or the back of the seam itself, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. You can see it. Bottom line is, I thought that the wrong side looked way nicer than the right side. So I decided that the next time I was going to do a flat felled seam, I was going to do it in reverse of what they told me to do. So that's what I did on my next sewing project. And I think it looks a lot better. So I don't know, do you have an opinion on that? Did they just tell me to do it weird, or do I just like it? Do I like the wrong side better than the right side? I don't know, that could be a thing. So anyway, I really like flat felt seams, but I like them the other way. And I definitely read the instructions right, because I went back and I was like, did they really tell me to do that? And they did. I think, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, whatever. I love my skirt. Again, this is the Gypsum skirt by Sew Liberated. And I'm definitely going to make another one. There's another version where it doesn't have the big floppy pockets. It has like inset pockets. And I want to make that one next. And I'm really happy with the fabric that I chose. Like, really happy with it. I love the drape. I might even order it again in a different color. I don't know. But I really, really like this skirt. Okay, moving on to my next sewing thing. I made an Ogden Cami by True Bias. And here it is. So this is a tank top. It's pretty popular. You have probably heard of it if you follow sewing patterns, indie sewing patterns. And after making this skirt, I was just kind of so inspired to keep sewing that I kind of was looking through the Me Made May hashtag. It's Me Made May right now. And by the way, I have been doing it. Like, I've been wearing hand sewn and hand knit garments every day in May. I just haven't really I haven't at all been documenting it for Instagram, which if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm DynamiteTrujillo. But I don't know. It just hasn't happened. But that's been really fun. But I was inspired to do this top because I saw a bunch of them on the Me Made May hashtag. A bunch of people have made this pattern. And they all looked really great. And it hardly took any fabric. And a huge thing for me was that the pattern itself was relatively small. So printing it out, taping it together wasn't like a huge undertaking, and that like really sits well with me. So I got it, and I made it like pretty quickly, like way faster than I thought I would. So I used this, I think it's rayon chelly, and I had initially started sewing a different top from this fabric a very long time ago. I totally messed the top up and put it aside and never thought of it again. And I had the leftover fabric from cutting out that top. And I was able to get this totally cut out from that leftover fabric. So that felt really good. And it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. I'm not going to put it on right now, but I'll wear it in my next episode. I figured that would be good. I don't really like the way it looks with this skirt. I think stylistically this top goes pretty well with the skirt, but the fabric's just, no. But I will try this on for you in the next episode. But it's definitely pretty janky. Like, there are a lot of spots on this where it's just like not as like cute and perfect as everybody else's. But whatever. So let me show you my flat felt seams on this one. So this pattern doesn't call for any particular seam finishing on the side seams, I don't think, or it like tells you like do something, I don't know, do whatever you like to do. So I decided to try the flat felt seams in the way that I wanted to do it on the other skirt, but didn't do it. So that's the outside, and that's the inside. And I'm really happy with it. I really am just kind of stoked to have this seam experience for a non-exposed raw edge seam. And I like it because you don't have to do any math to factor in any extra seam allowance. It works with the seam allowance that you have, which I'm interested in French seams for the same reason, but I feel like you need to factor in extra seam allowance for that, and I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I'm sure it's very simple math, like really simple, but I just haven't thought about it yet. But I'm really glad to know how to do this kind of seam now. And it was just a really cute, quick pattern. It doesn't have a very straight hemline, as you can probably tell. It's definitely not all the same length. It's okay. It's really nice and flowy, and I don't know. It was really fun to make. But man, I gotta get better. I gotta get better at sewing. I mean, I don't know how well you're gonna be able to tell on camera, but there are just some spots where it's like really very puckered and like not, I don't know, like I feel like it could be done way better, you know what I mean? But this is also a really slippery fabric, so I have a feeling like from cutting it out to sewing it, like things weren't really like perfect on the line where they should have been. But yeah, it's fine. It fits pretty nicely, and you can't really tell. All the mistakes that I see in it, or all the like sloppy bits that I can see in it when I'm looking at it like this, I can't really tell when I'm wearing it. It's still like the neckline in front still like looks nice and lays kind of flat, rather than when I look at it here, it just looks all lumpy and bumpy. Also, I did spaghetti straps for the first time, and that was really great. Before I started this pattern, I was convinced I needed to buy a loop turner to be able to do these. And then I looked up on YouTube. I looked up like turning fabric tubes without a loop turner or something like that. And I came across a video, and I watched a totally random video, and it gave me a technique that worked really great. It's where you just take like a stick. She used a chopstick, and I used the back end of a crochet hook, but you take your thing, and you take your fabric tube, and you just kind of like put it on the outside of it and start kind of shoving it up and making sure like I'm just going to link to the tutorial. It was a really great tutorial, and now I don't have to buy a fabric turner or a loop turner. And yeah. So I also got this fabric from fabric.com, and I'm going to link to it in the show notes in case you're interested. It's cute. It has flamingos on it. And it's really drapey and really like fluid, and I feel like that works really well for this top. I definitely want to make more of these too. And I think the more I make these, the better at them I will probably get. I'm thinking maybe a linen one? I don't know. We'll see. I really like the way this feels in this top. I also am very interested in hacking this into a dress. I think this could be a really cool, like, summer dress. So anyway, that's my sewing, right? I don't know what's getting into me, but I'm really into it right now. I spent last night, like, scouring the internet for sewing patterns that I might want. And there's actually not that many. I don't know. I need to learn how to look past the sample model, you know, of a thing and see what I could do with it. I don't know. But yeah, I'm pretty into the idea of sewing right now. I've been thinking about it a lot and wanting to do it more. So that feels really, really good. Okay, is that it? I think that's it. I'll do one last really quick favorites segment about books in a show. So I have been reading quite a bit lately, and I finished the Wayfarers series. I've been reading that on and off for quite a while. And the Wayfarers series is a trilogy by Becky Chambers. It starts out with Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. The second book I can't remember the name of, but it was my favorite. And then the third one, the one that I just finished, is called Record of the Spaceborne Few. The whole series is so good. It's a science fiction trilogy about a fictionalized space community, and it pretty much each book tells a different story with its own set of characters that all exist in the same universe. And it's very good. It's not the kind of sci-fi where it's like epic and dramatic and there's battles and like blah and like history is happening, and it's not that kind of sci-fi. It's more just like the lives of these regular people who happen to live in space. And I really loved it. I loved it a lot more than I thought I was going to when I first started the first book. I kind of didn't take the first book very seriously. I read it and I was like, oh, it was okay. And then I loved the second book, and this third one, it took me a little while to get into because it's the type of book that within the one book, it tells several different people's unrelated but vaguely related stories, and so it took me a little while to get everybody straight. But once I did, I got really into it. The third book tells the story of just a bunch of humans, which are kind of not the most advanced people in the universe that the books are set in. We're kind of seen as a little backwards to the rest of the universe. And it just tells the story of several different humans who live on this colony of ships, and it was really great. I enjoyed it so much. I can definitely recommend that trilogy for really fun but also really kind of thought-provoking reading. And I also read another whole book in the past few days, or really fast. It just came out. It's John Scalzi's The Last Emperor, which is the third book in the Interdependency trilogy, if that's what it's called. So it's another space thing. This one really is a space drama, though. It is an epic story that tells the story of an entire civilization of people who live in space. But John Scalzi's writing is really good. It's really sharp and biting and funny, and he curses a lot, and his characters are just so fantastic, and it was really fun to read. His books sometimes are a little hard for me to get into because he focuses a lot on the drama and the politics and the coups and the who's stabbing who in the back, and that's all a little boring to me. It can be a little plot intensive, but his characters are just so good. And it was really fun to read, so I finished that trilogy. And I am now reading The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, which is a book I got a couple months ago, and I'm finally just getting around to reading it. And I'm not that far into it, but just right off the bat, it really strikes you as this is a really amazing book. How have I never read this before? It's also science fiction, but it starts out as more like dystopian speculative fiction than like sci-fi. But I have a feeling it's going to get more sci-fi. I don't really know. I don't actually know anything about the book, but I've always wanted to read it, and I'm really happy I'm reading it now. It really hits hard from the get-go. It's kind of heart-wrenching at first, but it's so good. It's pretty much, it's describing, it's from the point of view of a young girl. I think she might be a teenager, and she's an empath, which means that she can feel what other people feel or what she thinks other people are feeling. And it's not like a great thing that she can do. It's a burden, and it's not something you want other people to know about in this future. So it's a future where society's pretty much collapsed, and you know, communities are existing behind walls because there's so much violence, and it's very dangerous to like be out in the streets if you're poor or middle class. It seems like there's a more upper class section that we haven't gotten to know yet, but they're probably fine. But it describes pretty much a dystopian future. It takes place in the year 2024 on Earth, and it's just really horrible and dangerous. And yeah, it's pretty much so far accounts. It's this girl's account of what's happening at that time, and I have a feeling it's going to go way beyond this community. But I don't know. We'll see. I think it's a trilogy to Sappha trilogies. That's where I go. Also, I've been watching a new Tommi television show. It is called Schitt's Creek, and it is amazing. I love it. I very much love it. I started watching it at the recommendation of the fat squirrel, who is Amy Beth, and I know if she recommends something, I'm probably going to like it. And I watched the first couple episodes, and I couldn't really tell if I was going to like it or not. It reminded me a lot of other things that I really like. Like I saw a lot of like Curb Your Enthusiasm elements. I saw some like Trailer Park Boys elements. I saw elements from other like comedy things that I like, but I couldn't tell if those were going to be done to my liking or not, or if I was just going to get annoyed and bored with the show. And I'm not done with the first season yet, but I'm quite a good ways into the first season, and I'm in love with it. It's really funny. It's really good. It's about a rich family who lose everything and go live in a town called Schitt's Creek. It's funny. It's really funny. It's with Eugene Levy and his son, whose name I forget, somebody else Levy, and man, his son is very good. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna let you go on Eugene Levy's son is very good. And I hope you're all having a really great week. Thank you so much for joining me in this week's episode of Squirrel Pie Productions. I'd love to hear about what you have been making, knitting, crochet, sewing, whatever you have been doing. Let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in any of the yarn that I showed, I will see you tomorrow, Saturday, May 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And thanks again for being here. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not yet. Thank you so much to my Patreon patrons. If you're interested in checking that out, there's a link to my Patreon page below. It's pretty cool. I think you can get entered into winning prizes or things like that, getting yarn and stuff. Okay, have fun and stay awesome. Bye.